Hi everyone, this is V. Welcome to my channel where I'm breaking down the entire interview season. We're going to be talking about all the different ways that programs can reach out to you guys to invite you for interviews, the ways that you can schedule. There's a few cool apps that I'm going to talk about as well. I'm going to add lots of links down below, so don't forget to check out the description box. The timeline of the video will also be there. As always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, pass this forward to other applicants that could use this information, and without wasting any more time, let's get right to it. Some general information. So when can you anticipate interviews? This question varies so much and there's so many factors around this. My first and foremost advice would be don't stress out right away. Okay, I think when should you start stressing out should be like after 6-7 weeks. And I say that because first of all, every application cycle is going to be different in the sense that the due dates change every year. So I can't give you a set time. Also, every program works differently. They have some programs do it in cycles. So they have, for example, a batch of interviews that they send out first, and they have a dry period, then they have another batch of interviews that they send out. So there are cycles. Some programs just do it all at once. Some programs, don't even start looking at it until your MSPEs are delivered, and your MSPEs are received by programs later on. For example, the year that I applied, September 15th was the deadline, but MSPEs were released October 1st. Regardless of what cycle you're in, what year you're looking at this video in, make sure you keep up with the ERAS timelines as they are updated every year, and ERAS AAMC website is going to have the most updated information for you. So with that being said, again, factors that determine when and how long until applications are submitted will you get an interview, it's really not in your control, right? The best you've done is having a strong application. Once you've sent that, I think you should personally give yourself some time off. Just, continue working on your electives or whatever it is that you're doing, and just know that you've done the best you can. It's another reason why it's so important to really get it done by the deadline. LORs can be uploaded after the deadline, but I've talked about that in the LOR videos, so check that out if you need more information. Really emphasizing the point that don't get discouraged right away. Everyone's trajectory will be different during the application season and the interview season. Somebody could get interviews right away, but then they can have a period where they're not getting any interviews. That personally was my trajectory. Remember, for me personally, I got an interview like the day after I submitted, and I got a few more after that. Then I had a couple of weeks where I didn't get anything. Then I had another phase really come in through October, November, and then it really just kept sort of climbing from there. So do not get discouraged in periods where you don't have interviews, right? There are going to be a few weeks throughout the interview cycle that are going to be that way. That being said, and I have talked about this in the emailing etiquette video, so be sure to check that out, is if you're not getting enough interviews by, I would say, late November, December in the normal cycle, or just honestly 4 or 5 weeks after you submitted, if you really haven't heard back and your MSPE is in, then I would ask, number one, school advisors what you should do. Then make a list, if you haven't already, of your main programs that you're most interested in and sending your letters of interest. Please watch the email etiquette video for more breakdown of letter of interest. I would also just be mindful, right? This is the time where you've already put in so much work. Just be mindful of your own mental well-being. Don't get too stressed out. Unless there is a reason to, unless you really, really haven't heard back and it's been 6 weeks, then maybe I would say step up and take some actions. Calling your school would probably be my number one advice. Another tip is with waitlisting, if you're on a wait list, periodically check that wait list. I remember a lot of my friends had told me that nearing the end of the season, so December, January, when other people had dropped out from program wait list, they were able to snatch some of those spots. So keep a periodic check on your wait list. As soon as a spot opens up, grab that, snatch that spot, because there might not be a chance for you to do that otherwise. So the 5 sort of main platforms that programs can reach out to you to invite you and schedule interviews is going to be directly through ERAS, which a majority of them do, direct phone call, direct email, and Thalamus, GME, as well as interview broker. So these were the 5, and I personally, throughout my interview season, had all 5 being used. So I will break down each one of them, as well as provide links down below where you can go to their own individual websites and check them out. So the first portal that I'm going to talk about is, of course, ERAS. ERAS has its own scheduling portal, and I will post a very very, very amazing PowerPoint down in the link below that AAMC themselves have put out, and it explains the entire ERAS scheduler. It goes through all different sections. ERAS has a scheduling, waitlist, and a declining interview invitation option. So make sure you check that out and also understand how the calendar. Also, my own video on ERAS breakdown, I also go through the interview section there as well. So you do have a couple of resources to figure out the ERAS portal. Just take note that any time you schedule an interview outside of the ERAS system, it's not going to show up in your calendar for ERAS. So you have to be very organized. You have to be really good at time management and have a platform and a place where you yourself can schedule, you can see all of your interviews throughout all platforms. So I have a Mac. So what I did was I used my iCalendar app, and I basically made a new calendar just for interview season. And anytime I scheduled something, whether it was through ERAS, by phone, Thalamus, I would put that interview date onto my own calendar as well. Each of these platforms will have their versions of their calendar, but the goal is to streamline one area where you can see all of your interview dates. And I also wanted to use something where I can change things really quickly. So I mean, the iCalendar app for Mac was a really great choice for me. So once a program reaches out to you on ERAS and you accept the date, I do talk about this in emailing etiquette, but I would follow up. You know, you're probably going to get a message in your messaging center saying so-and-so program has invited you for an interview day, and then you go into the ERAS interview section and you schedule the date, you pick the date, or you waitlist the date, whatever. I would follow up with an email. Usually what I did was if they sent me a message through ERAS, I would email them through ERAS. If I got an invitation through my email, I would email them through email. Don't make these emails too long. You don't need to send them a heavy essay thanking them. This is just a straightforward email following up, indicating to the program that you have received their invitation, indicating the program that you've picked a date and you're just, you're glad to go, and then you just show up and you have a great old time. So that's for ERAS. When you get a direct email invite, a really big reason why you need to have a good email that's professional, and it's going to be linked to all your applications. For example, from personal experience, I was in my sub-I IM where I started getting my first couple of emails for interviews, and because I had them synced, my emails synced to all my applications, whether I was on my iPad or my phone during rounds, I would get that silent buzz. I would check it and I would be like, oh, I have an interview invite. And I would just tell my chief resident or whoever was my senior there that, hey, I'm just going to step out, be back in 2 seconds. Just be mindful of your surroundings and where you are and act accordingly. But I never ran into a problem. My residents, shout out to Brooklyn Hospital, they were always really cool about it, and they were like, yeah, sure, just go grab it and come back. So I would act on these emails because I didn't want to be waitlisted, and I just wanted to make sure I maximize all my chances. So when I got a invitation through email, what I usually saw was it was just a list of dates that they would have, and then they would provide PDFs of the schedule for the day and lots of things like that. I would send a reply follow up through the email that they emailed from. The third way is through direct phone call. Actually, throughout the entire interview season, I only really had 2 or 3 phone calls, but I remember that I picked up almost every phone call that I got during the season because I just didn't want to miss anything. So one phone call I got was a pre-interview phone call. So it was sort of a phone call that I had just asking me questions. They were like, hey, I'm from so-and-so program. I want to ask you a few questions and we'll go from there. And I was like, sure. So I had on the spot interview, but I went to the side and I answered all the questions that I could to my best abilities. And I actually ended up getting a follow-up email a few days later from the same program saying, hey, we'd love to have you for an interview. So that went really great. The second phone call I had was for a direct interview. They said, I have a few more openings for our program. Would you like to come in on so-and-so date? So if you're getting a phone call, what I would do is ask them who is calling, ask them for their contact information, and then you follow up that way. So if I had a program coordinator call me saying, we have such and such date open, can you come? I would tell them, yeah, sure. I think this date works for me. Check my phone app, check my iCalendar on my phone, look at what dates are open for me and my own schedule, which is why you need to have everything synchronized during the season. You got to be a little tech savvy here. And then I would say, oh yeah, I actually have this date open on the phone. I wouldn't make them wait. I would just be like, yeah, actually I have this date open. Does this work for you? Once they confirm, I would get their email address after saying, thank you for calling. Same sort of deal as every follow-up email that I sent. Thank you, nice talking to you, blah, blah, blah. I have booked, just wanted to confirm again, we have booked this date and this time. Excited to see you. Sincerely, your fantastic email signature, which I have repeatedly said in multiple videos. The fourth way that programs can reach out to you is Thalamus, and I will provide the link for Thalamus GME below. I also have it open right here, so I'm going to go through it with you. It's thalamusgme.com. I personally loved this site. I thought that the programs that had this, I would be like, thank you, because this is just such a great website. Whoever was the creator of Thalamus, it's basically the same sort of thing. It's like ERAS, but a different version of it. Also have an app that you can download. So I definitely downloaded the Thalamus app on my phone. It's more convenient for me if I had to switch anything on the go. So the way Thalamus works is that the program shows you through a calendar of Thalamus every single slot they have open, how many candidates they're going to have for that slot, and it shows you, oh, this slot for this day is booked, this slot is open, there's one more seat left, there's two more seats left, there's two. So so you get an idea of which slots are open. And the ones that I had, and I've had like I think 3 or 4 programs use Thalamus. So I was able to see the calendar for all of those programs in one calendar. So I was able to be like, oh, so if I needed to switch anything, I thought Thalamus had a really great interface to switch real quick. It shows you the wait list. It also shows you if the program is having a dinner, like a pre-interview dinner. It shows you that you can put in food restrictions and there's a lot of little great details that Thalamus has, in my opinion. The thing is, with all these platforms, I'm not going to go into pros and cons because it doesn't matter. You don't really have a choice, right? This is what the program has chosen for you to schedule on, so you don't really have a choice. I'm just going to give my personal opinion. I think Thalamus is great. I liked its interface. I think the software was easy. I think the app was great to work with. So if you do have an interview from Thalamus, after you get your first interview, I would suggest download the app. I would suggest get a feel for how the interface of the software is, because it makes it a lot easier for you that way. Last but not the least, Interview Broker. And this one didn't have an app as per my knowledge. It came through an email, and I would just click on the link that came through the email and I would sign into Interview Broker. I made an account, you sign in, and then same sort of thing as everything else. Out of all the dates selections that they give you, you sort of pick one, and then it sends you a confirmatory email to your email address saying, oh, you have picked so-and-so date. Through the Interview Broker, the initial email that I got, if the program didn't have the person of contact for follow-up email, I would just look up the program coordinator's email either through Frida or just their own website. I would follow up with the program coordinator. If I have any questions, I would always relate it to the program coordinator about traveling, about itinerary, about switching things around. Program coordinators are amazing, so never ever fail to thank program coordinators at the end of your interview day, because they're the ones that have really put together the interview experience, and a lot of work goes into that, I'm sure. So don't forget to do that on your interview days. Just a general tip for just keeping your mental health in check throughout the interview season. I refrained myself from talking to a lot of people about interviews. And I remember I was in my electives during this time. So I was, when I wasn't in interviews, I was back and forth in the hospital a lot with traveling. So it gets really hectic. So that being said, the way I really kept myself, positive and kept myself afloat throughout the stress was I kept a small circle of friends. And honestly, only 2 or 3 people really knew my schedule, really know how many interviews I was getting and how I felt about all the interviews in the program. So I would say personally, keep your circle small. In the hospital, when you're on electives, start blabbing about your interviews. A, you're going to stress other people out, which there's no point. And B, you might stress yourself out, because what if other people start talking to you now, and then throughout the conversation you figure out, damn, one of my dream hospitals is already setting interviews. I don't have an interview from them yet. So just, I would say, avoid it. There's no need to chit chatter. I think that that's a personal thing. You do not have to answer anybody, including during your interview season, to even programs. No one should be allowed to ask, and you have the right to say no. If somebody asks you how many interviews you got in specific programs, this is all your personal information. So just know you're not obligated to tell anybody anything you don't want to. I think that's all of the advice I have for all the different modalities that programs use to contact you. I hope I was able to give a bit more insight. As per my knowledge, though, ERAS and direct email, were the 2 most common used platforms for programs. Just don't forget to follow up if a program gives you an invite. They're giving you a chance. They're giving you an open door. You got to take this chance from there on out and really impress them through the interviews. But we will go more into interviews in some of my next videos. So stay tuned. See you next time. That's all I have for this video, everybody. I hope this sort of helps everyone. Want to reach out for more questions or comments, all of my bio is in the description box below. Comment, like, subscribe, and please share to other students and applicants that would benefit from this. Cheers!